Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Mitchell, I know you. I seen you. You raised your hand a little bit when Mykel Gayent said something. Share your thoughts on what you were going to say.
I was just agreeing on the importance of sharing lessons as a man. Like, I know in our society, most of our teachers are women, you know, as far as in the educational system. But I think that some of the most powerful lessons that we get are from our older male role models early on in life, because they really imprint on you what it means to be a man. Also, when we talk about men and being a man, I think it's important to talk about masculinity and what masculinity means and what it like presents itself. And I like to break it down into three things, right? One, strength. You have to be strong, mental fortitude as well as physical fortitude. Second is what the experts call gameness, which is the readiness to get into a fight, which in the past was important to, you know, procuring resources. And I think the third one, I'm trying to remember what the third part of like nationally recognized parts of masculinity is, but those two in itself can really point to like how society has like ran forward with men at the helm for so long.
Yeah, no, I really like that point, Mitchell, that you bring up as far as like being a builder of some sort, or someone who always has the tools to construct or build all of the infrastructures that we see in today's world. When we go outside in society and see all these buildings that are built up, it's safe to say that most of those buildings are built by men and in construction. And if you are a man in construction, you also must know that if you are worthy or incapable of construction, then you're worthy of deconstructing or deconstructing yourself, you know, being self-destructive. Those are some things that come along with the pressure that society puts on men currently in our world, of us carrying around all that weight of how we need to be and what we need to be and what that entails. That really is a good point, Mitchell, and I like that. So just sharing that with all of you, you know, what else are some thoughts on what it really means to be a man?
Probably because I actually wrote a book on this, and it was Shamar's life, domestic violence from a child's point of view, because my father was very abusive. And one question that I would ask him is, do you still think of yourself as a man? Because one thing with being a man is you have to treat the woman in your life, even if it's your mom, your grandpa, your grandma. I'll never really forget that. And that's actually a question I want to ask him if I see him in the future, because that's one thing about being a man. You can't ever put your hands on a woman. And that's why whenever men come into my mom's life now, I'm always, I wouldn't say overprotective, but she's also my mom at some point of view. And I want to make sure that she is safe and that nobody will harm her.
Yeah. You know, Shamar, I want to take time to appreciate and acknowledge your bravery in sharing that insight into your life, because I too identify with domestic violence in my background. And my father was very abusive towards my mother. And that was a representation of what a man was when I was growing up. But throughout my life, I had to learn that the way I do treat the women in my life is a representation of the man that I am and the character that I'm building or that I'm standing behind. You know, so there's a lot of things that I had to unlearn. You know, I had to unlearn those things about masculinity, and I had to acquire what I admire from other men that I look up to. You know, motivational speakers or authors of books or coaches or teachers or men, my friends' fathers. You know, those are other places that I had to get access to what a good man looks like, you know, or what a healthy man looks like, you know, because I don't believe that my father wanted to intentionally hurt my mother. I feel like he was just hurt inside and he wasn't vulnerable enough to share his feelings and to seek help for his anger issues. You know, he just took all that and put it on my mom. So those are very, very deep insights that we can all share together. And I appreciate you again, Shamar. And I'll open the floor back up to anyone else who wants to share their thoughts.
Just I'd like to continue on with that a little bit on, because I had some experience when it comes to anger issues. And it's true that this is something that usually interferes with with being a good man, because we're usually mad because we don't understand things or we don't understand people. And but one of the first things I realized is that I didn't understand myself, and I had to learn about accepting myself. I was successful in many points of my life. That I can look back on my life and say, I appreciate when I was this way, when I was this person. I look back because I try to get the best of what I was to become the best of who I am now.
Right.
I don't have the same anger issues. I did take classes, and on top of that, I'm constantly talking about mindfulness and meditation and my faith in God. And I even got a real good example yesterday. I was about to argue with a woman in a store, and I stormed out, and I was still mad at my car, and I turned it on, and it immediately went off. Everything went dead. And at first I wanted to panic. What's going on with my car? But I decided to just take a breath and relax and think. The answer came, check the battery. And that's all I did. I went and checked the battery, and I fixed that problem. The car started, and I took off. And then last night I was in a group of men, and the answer actually came to me that the Lord was working with me, teaching me a lesson about my actions yesterday. And this is the kind of thing that I rely on, and it helps me. It helps me be not only a better man but a better person. So that what you led into with on this subject is very near and dear to me right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Mitchell, I see that you were eager to say something. Go ahead.
Oh, I was agreeing with how the example of God showing you exactly what was going on with the situation. I definitely believe in that. It's like a sociological perspective called the symbolic interaction. It's super cool. But I want to say thank you for Shamar. Your insight and your wisdom at your age is unparalleled. It's like when I was 15, I was just thinking about skateboarding, video games. There's no way that I would be on here talking about important men's issues. So that's fantastic. Fantastic.
Mm-hmm. I want to echo that. I want to echo that a little bit too. It's just like that's exactly the representation that I feel is being a man, is being vulnerable and sharing those feelings, sharing those painful experiences and circumstances that we go through in life. Because when we are in pain, society could teach men to just suppress that and to not share it. But if you do that long enough and you hide your feelings and you're still in pain and more pain comes throughout life, that eventually is going to overflow itself and it's going to explode. And, we don't want those types of things to happen. We could talk all day about how they do happen in mass shootings and toxic masculinity ways and abuse and domestic violence and all sorts of anger issues and the way that we express ourselves. in those more violent ways. We want to try to steer away from all of that, and it starts with being vulnerable and seeing vulnerability as a strength and not a weakness. And one thing I'll always say, I'll end my thought here, is that as men, our vulnerability is our superpower.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. You have to be able to take a step back and look at the actions of either yourself or those around you, and try to find the lesson in each incident. I mean, that's one of the best things a man can do, is to take the lesson out of each situation, because I believe we've been put into certain positions, not only to see how we would respond, but to learn from them, and then take what you've learned and share them with others.
Yeah, great point. It reminds me of the being stern with self and kind to others, and also learning how to be selfishly selfless. Being a selfish man who gains all this knowledge and extracts positivity and nourishment and motivation from the world around him, just so he can nourish himself and then give that to the world around him, to his friends, to his family, to his community, to us in attendance here, to Shamar, to Mitchell, to Mykel. All of that we're sharing, and we're giving that man to the world. And we're just trying to develop, that man that we can all admire at the end of the day.